Imagine being 14 years old, barely tall enough to see over the courtroom railing, your small hands clutching a Bible as you're led to an electric chair. That was the reality for George Stinney Jr. in 1944, a black teenager from South Carolina who became the youngest person executed in the United States in the 20th century. His story is a gut-wrenching chapter in America's history, a true crime case that exposes the flaws of a broken justice system. Today, as debates about justice and the death penalty rage on in 2025, we're revisiting the tragic case of George Stinney Jr., a boy accused of a horrific crime, convicted without evidence, and executed in just 83 days. How did a child end up on death row? And what does his story tell us about the pursuit of justice today? Stick with us as we unravel this heartbreaking tale of wrongful conviction, racial injustice, and a fight for redemption that came decades too late. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss more true crime documentaries like this one. Let's get into it. It's March 24th, 1944, in Alcolu, South Carolina, a small, segregated mill town split by railroad tracks. Whites on one side, black families on the other. George Stinney Jr., a 14-year-old African-American boy, plays outside with his younger sister, Amy, near their family's modest company house. Two white girls, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames, ride by on their bicycles, searching for maypop flowers. They stop and ask George and Amy if they know where to find them. The siblings shake their heads, no idea. The girls ride off, and that's the last George sees of them. But that evening, Betty and Mary didn't come home. The town erupts into panic. A search party forms, including George's father, George Sr., and even young George himself. The next morning, the girls' bodies are found in a waterlogged ditch near Green Hill Missionary Baptist Church. They'd been brutally beaten, their skulls crushed with what a coroner later described as a round instrument like the head of a hammer. Betty had 7 blows to her head. Mary had a hole through her forehead. The town is horrified, and suspicion quickly falls on the last person seen with the girls, 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. Now let's pause here. In 1944, Alcolu was deep in the Jim Crow South. Racial tensions ran high, and black families like the Stinneys lived under constant scrutiny. George, a slight boy at 5 feet 1 and just 95 pounds, was an easy target. On March 26th, police arrested him and his older brother Johnny, hauling them away while their parents were at work. Amy, just 8 years old, hides in the family's chicken coop, terrified. The police release Johnny but focus on George, interrogating him for hours alone, without a lawyer or his parents. According to the sheriff, George confesses to the murders, claiming he used a 15-inch railroad spike and even led police to where he hid it. But here's the thing. There's no signed confession, no written record, no physical evidence tying George to the crime. Nothing. Just the word of a white sheriff in a segregated town. George's family later said the confession was coerced, likely through fear or intimidation. Yet based on this alone, George is charged with capital murder and rape. The trial, if you can call it that, happens on April 24th, 1944, just 1 month after the murders. It's a sham. The courthouse is segregated. No black people are allowed inside. George's court-appointed lawyer, Charles Plowden, is a tax attorney with political ambitions and 0 experience in capital cases. He calls no witnesses, doesn't cross-examine the prosecution, and fails to mention George's alibi. Amy, who says she was with him the entire time, watching their family's cow graze. The prosecution's case? The sheriff's claim of a confession? That's it. After a 2-hour trial, an all-white jury deliberates for just 10 minutes before finding George guilty. The judge sentences him to death by electric chair. He's 14 years old. George's family is shattered. His father is fired from his job at the lumber mill, and the Stinneys are forced to flee Alcolu under threats of violence. A white mob even attempts to lynch George, but he's already been moved to a jail in Columbia. Advocacy groups, including the NAACP, plead for clemency, but South Carolina's governor, Olin Johnston, refuses. On June 16, 1944, just 83 days after the murders, George is led to the execution chamber. Picture this: a 14-year-old boy, so small he needs to sit on a Bible to fit in the electric chair built for adults. Guards struggle to strap him in. The electrode on his leg won't stay put, and the mask over his face is too big. At 7:30 a.m., 2,400 volts surge through his body. Witnesses report the mask slipping, revealing tears streaming down his face. George Stinney Jr. is gone, the youngest person executed in the U.S. in the 20th century. But the story doesn't end there. Decades later, in 2004, historian George Frierson, a local from Alcolu, starts digging into the case. He uncovers inconsistencies, no physical evidence, no signed confession, and Amy's alibi ignored. George's cellmate, Wilfred Hunter, even said George told him, "I didn't do it. Why would they kill me for something I didn't do?" By 2014, George's surviving siblings, Amy, Catherine, and Charles, join lawyers and activists to seek justice. They file for a new hearing, arguing George's Sixth Amendment rights were violated. In December 2014, Circuit Judge Carmen Mullen makes a historic ruling. She vacates George's conviction, calling it a great and fundamental injustice. Mullen notes the coerced confession, ineffective counsel, and the sheer cruelty of executing a child. After 70 years, George Stinney Jr. is exonerated. His sister Catherine later said, "It was like a cloud just moved away. I threw my hands up and said, 'Thank you, Jesus.'" But questions linger. Who really killed Betty and Mary? Some point to George Burke Jr., the son of a wealthy white businessman in Alcolu. Burke Sr., who owned the land where the girls' bodies were found, led the initial search and was the grand jury foreman who indicted George. Rumors swirled of a deathbed confession from a prominent white family, though never proven. Others, like Alcolu resident Sonia Eddie Williamson, heard stories that Burke Jr. picked up the girls in his lumber truck that day. Wayne Burke, his son, denied these claims in 2017, insisting George was guilty. The truth remains elusive, buried in a town divided by race and secrets. George's case isn't just a 2025 true crime story, it's a stark reminder of systemic failures. The lack of due process, racial bias, and rushed judgment robbed a boy of his life. It forces us to ask how many others face similar fates. And with death penalty debates heating up in 2025, what safeguards ensure justice today? George Stinney Jr.'s story is a wound that still stings. A 14-year-old boy, wrongfully convicted, executed, and forgotten for decades until his family's fight brought him justice. 70 years too late. As we navigate 2025's justice debates, from death row stories to calls for reform, George's case reminds us how far we've come and how far we still have to go. His exoneration in 2014 was a victory, but it can't erase the pain of a life stolen or the questions about who really committed those murders in Alcolu. This true crime documentary is a call to remember those failed by the system, to question what we accept as justice, and to honor George's memory by demanding better. What do you think? Could this happen today? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation alive. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more execution stories and true crime cases in 2025.